and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. This video is, to a degree and to not, the last thoughts on of the year. And I might say, what do you mean by that? But just by saying that, I've said too much. You'll see what I mean in a second. Well, not in a second, in a couple weeks, obviously. But I'm just gonna give one thing away right now. It's not gonna be thoughts on me yet. We'll have to wait for that a little later. Maybe I'll do that for like my 5-year anniversary, like the thoughts on Pluribus Unum. Yeah, that's probably, I've already given myself a great video idea. But that's all the BS and like the gatekeeping, not gatekeeping, housekeeping and all that. With that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First, we're going to be talking about Nicaragua. Surprisingly, Daniel Ortega won the Nicaraguan elections. Oh my goodness! Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed Daniel Ortega, the guy who jailed like literally half of his opposition, would win his election? And with 75.87% of the popular vote? Oh my goodness! How could this have happened? Oh my goodness! How could? Of course, you get my point. You get my point. This is just the fact that this is the funniest part. This has become discourse. And it's just, how could anybody think that this fits point blank with what we have said about a lot of other regimes, and yet for some reason, again, because Ortega is supposedly good, we're seeing discourse. Let me make things crystal clear to everybody before I continue. Ortega, bad. U.S. imperialism, bad. OAS, bad. I'm not saying any of this because of like some like imperialist agenda that I have. I'm saying this because objectively, this is very apparent. I've stated this before and I've stated this again. No legitimate president wins 75% of the vote. Like, when you get to, like, the 60s, you're kind of pushing it. Well, not even that. Like, when you get into by the mid-60s, you're essentially, that's the lowest you can be in a democratic society. Like, if you win anything more than 60% of the vote is essentially rigged. And when I say rigged, I don't mean, like, Ortega went to the ballot boxes and then ripped out the votes and then wrote in Ortega and then put the votes back. No, you know what I mean. That the system is stacked against them. Ortega literally jailed half of his opposition. Are you idiotic? And the thing is, like, Ortega's just doing bad things. Like, again, like, I've been seeing a lot of people go like, why do people all of a sudden care about Nicaragua now? And it's like, I've been talking about Nicaragua for months. None of you have been paying attention? Like, there are people in my circle that are literally, like, saying, like, they're looking into Nicaragua now, and it's like, I mean, I've been literally paying attention to the situation for months, but, I mean, I guess, I guess it's fine, you don't have to watch me every day, but I just assumed that maybe you would've, and I think this is hilarious because, much like the last election, Ortega didn't really invite other countries to, like, look at the results of his election. But what he did was actually even worse. He instead decided to pay Pasta and Fiorella from the Convo Couch to come observe his elections. And they're of course doing the same old, like, BS of, like, Nazwell stuff, which is essentially what Ortega has become. But they're, like, doing all of this, and it's like, see, this is the model that the US should be doing in regards to our elections. But, like, I find them coming here and standing for Nicaragua to be funny. Because, like, a couple of months ago, they were standing, like, Pedro Castillo from Peru. And we're like, we need to stand with Peru and blah, 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 blah. when Peru's government literally stated that these election results are not legitimate by any means, and that the entire international community should reject them outwardly. Like, it's pretty funny because it's like the two worst members of the Pink Tide are turning against each other. Ooh. Again, it's with the tankies and the Nazbols. They always love this to stand like the freaking authoritarian leaders, when in fact these guys, like, literally in 2 seconds, if I gave literally everything Ortega did and then said that a right-winger did it, they'd be like, oh no, how could he? I see the same people who said, we stand with the Colombian protesters, immediately go, oh no, we need to stop the Nicaraguan coup. And I find it hilarious because they keep, like, I mean, one of the big things that I've been seeing, like, a lot of people have been, like, trying to show, like, but I mean, they're saying that there's a coup, and it's like, okay, but where? Nobody's showing me the coup. They're saying, oh, the Nicaraguan government has said they should stop a coup, because it's like, yeah, yes, the so reliable Nicaraguan government that would totally never, ever, ever lie about a situation like jailing protesters, especially considering, again, things like this were used to justify other things as well. In the Colombian protests, they justified jailing protesters there because they were claiming that Maduro was trying to send people over there to try and destabilize their governments. But of course, when the guy who says that he's a socialist says it, it's perfectly fine. But when the guy who's not a socialist says it, of course it's evil. And another thing that shows that they don't know is that they literally are just like, oh yeah, Ortega's just this super lefty guy. And it's like, not really. Ortega's shifted to the right ever since like 2007. Like, he's shifted further and further to the right and has become more and more authoritarian. Again, I have been paying attention to the situation for a while now. It is not my fault that you are paying attention to the situation now. And as a lefty, I cannot endorse what Ortega has done in any stretch of the word. I do not like Ortega, and I also don't believe in the stupid notion of critical support. I tried to look up what the term critical support meant, and thinking that it was an actual political term, but it turns out it's not. But critical support is essentially what I've, like, I mean, and if you blame me for getting the wrong answer, sorry, but this is how the communists have used it. Essentially, critical support is you take a very bad and very, like, crappy leader, but you just say, oh, I have to support them because they call themselves socialist. That's not how it works. I don't support them because they call themselves socialists. I support them because they do things that are socialist. And Ortega, I don't really see the socialism in jailing protesters who want to save social security in their nation. If that's what your definition of socialism is, you're an idiot. So anyways, on more Latin American news, the Chilean President Piñera has been impeached over the Pandora Papers. They have approved to set up a trial in the Senate, which will more than likely fail, but that's, again, not necessarily why they are doing it. The reason why the Chilean, left, I guess, is trying to do this is simple. The election is right around the corner, so, of course, they're trying to ruin conservatives' chances with this election, and I guess this could work. I mean, Cast, but I guess there's one thing that might not necessarily work, because Cast is not necessarily in the same vein of right wing as Piñera. Piñera is more of a center right guy, but Cast is a full on fascist. So we really don't know necessarily what is going to pan out. I will say this, for all of these people who seem to be really into the Peru or Nicaraguan thing, I really do want to take a look and find out if they have been actually talking about the Chilean election, because the Chilean election is far more important than what is going on in Nicaragua and what happened in Peru. Well, I guess technically Peru, it makes sense, but it's definitely way more important than Nicaragua right now, because we're actually on the cusp of doing something way better. But of course, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that they haven't been talking about it. So anyways, the next story is kind of really not that important. I mean, it kind of is, but it's weird. So essentially, we all know what happened with Paul Gosar and AOC at this point, but for those who don't know, let me explain. An incumbent member of the United States House of Representatives, Paul Gosar, posted a video of AOC. Like, essentially, he made a video of the Attack on Titan theme, but he edited it so that the main character in the show is him, and he made it so that the Titans were illegal aliens, and then he made AOC one of the Titans, but it happened in a particular moment in the intro where the character runs up to the Titan and slashes their neck. So he essentially made a video of him killing AOC, and that got him into a heck of a lot of trouble. The video is still publicly available on Twitter, I believe, at this particular moment, because it's like, again, they're like, in the public interest, it's probably best if people see this video. Now, of course, for many reasons, it's stupid. You know, he's made an anime video of him killing another member of the Congress. That is definitely not good. But here's one thing that is very interesting. This is basically just another one of his, like, telltines to fascists. Now I say, what? How is this? Simple. The alt-right loves Japan. That's basically an open secret, that the alt-right loves Japan. Japan is their... Like, Japan is literally their ideal society, except replace the Japanese people with white people. Well, I mean, not even necessarily that, because the Japanese people helped Nazis, so I guess that's what they believe. That they're like, oh, the Japanese are, like, we're brothers because we fought in World War II together. Of course, that's not actually why. The reason why is because Japan is essentially an ethno-nationalist society, and yet despite the fact that they're extremely ethno-nationalist, they've somehow created something that has been able to become a culturally dominant thing all across the world. And they, of course, consume that culture. And that's essentially a long way of saying that the alt-right are essentially a bunch of closeted weeaboo pedos. And apparently, people are saying that if you actually watch Attack on Titan, it apparently debunks what they're saying, like... But of course, I haven't seen Attack on Titan, because... Honestly, I can just say, because it's too mainstream. Like, I mean, as weird as it sounds, it's definitely like a... Oh, that's way too mainstream for me. For anime, it really is. I don't watch the mainstream stuff. I don't watch Dragon Ball, I don't watch One Piece, I don't watch Naruto, I don't watch Sailor Moon. I also don't view it as like some like magical genre. It's not. What it is an art form to express many genres. There have been comedy animes, there have been slice of life animes, there have been action-packed animes. There have been animes that deal with a lot of heavy drama and social issues. There's some that are literally just brain rot. But that's not a topic for here. Let's talk about Dr. Oz, who is deciding to jump into the Pennsylvania Senate race. I'll just say this. John K. Fetterman may have some competition. I say that half jokingly, but, you know, genuinely, I do, I mean, ironically, that literally is the only person that I can actually think of that might stand a chance against Fetterman, and that is honestly just because of name recognition alone. That would be the equivalent of, like, Oprah running for a House seat. Maybe you could do something. But, I mean, again, I don't necessarily know, because there are a lot of people who say, like, oh, a Turkish Muslim might not necessarily win a lot of Republican voters, but, I mean, we gotta remember, this is Dr. Oz. He's the pseudoscience guy that they basically watch in their free time, so there's a chance. Speaking of chances, let's move on to the best news of the night. Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick. She is going to be the next congresswoman from Florida District 20 because she has won by 5 votes over Dan Holness. So, she's going to be the next congresswoman. For those who don't remember why she's going to be the next congresswoman, it's because Florida District 20, heavily blue seat, she's going to become the next congresswoman. I should have backed this horse when the race happened, but I didn't. I thought Omari Harry would be a better choice, but I guess it's technically like the Anthony Clark, Keena Collins situation. In retrospect, maybe we should have seen that they could have done a better chance, but, I mean, We backed who we backed. There's no going back now. Sheila was a good second choice. Brand new Congress beat me at one thing. Maybe they'll beat me again soon. Good on her. Hopefully she'll be able to do something very good. Now, speaking of things that are good, we're going to talk about the exact opposite today. With the main topic of this video being a YouTuber by the name of Shoe0nHead. I'll be upfront and say that I should have done more research on her going into this video, but I didn't. I have a decent enough stuff to work with. I know a lot about her already, even though I'm not even a fan of her, but I was generally in the circle that she was in. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But first, who is she? Shoe0nHead, or known by normal people who go outside and have lives as June Lepin, a YouTuber who posts commentary videos in a vlog style format. She originally started her life trying to be like sketch comedy, but that essentially just didn't pan out. And then in 2010 she created a vlog channel called Shoe0nHead, and that was where she became a sort of commentary YouTuber, where she would like, you know, talk about all the dramas and stuff that happened. I remember I was watching a YouTube documentary about some guy. I don't remember what his name is currently, but then as the video was continuing, like they made a big revelation that I did know who he was, and it was like, let me introduce you to life in a tent. And I was like, oh, no way. And then as the video continued, it turns out that Shoe0nHead had actually commentated on the life in a tent situation. Now, this is actually like old school YouTube drama, so let me explain. The life in a tent situation was a YouTuber by the name of Life in a Tent. He made a lot of controversial jokes around the earthquake in Japan during like 2010, 2011. And a lot of people didn't necessarily like that, and I was like, hey, yo, bro, what are you doing? June, of course, being one of them. And she essentially just stayed in that sphere until like 2014, when one day she decided to make a video talking about feminism. The reason why she did it was because a lot of her friends on Facebook were posting videos and stuff about feminism, and she decided to do a little rant about feminism. So then she was like, if I post it on Facebook, my friends are going to know that I'm not talking about them. So she decided to post it on her Shoe0nHead video, like, channel instead. And she thought, oh, like, nobody I know is going to watch this. This isn't going to do anything, like, important or anything. Well, it turns out another YouTuber by the name of Thunderfoot, who was he was an atheist YouTuber that then became, like, you know how it is back in the early days. Atheist YouTubers would then start talking about feminism, like, oh yeah, we hate feminism. A thing that in retrospect probably should have been an indicator that there's a lot of problems in that community, because, I mean, one of the big things that always seemed to be like a thing is that they just kept saying, we hate feminists. I mean, I think that's kind of why they used the term social justice warrior, because social justice warriors seemed like a different thing. Like, oh no, we're not talking about feminists. We're talking about like social justice warriors. Like other people, you like, we're not talking about feminists. We're talking about feminazis. But like, Shoe was definitely like, no. Like feminists. Feminists are the issue. And so Shoe essentially just became an anti-SJW YouTuber. And when I say that, I don't mean like there were other people who were technically quote-unquote anti-SJW, like Kyle Kalinske was quote-unquote anti-SJW, and TJ Kirk was anti-SJW, but it's like, they did other things as well, but Shoe really did seem like just to be anti-SJW, much like Chris Reagan. She started getting equated with a lot of those, like, people like Sargon, Lauren Southern, and one person named Armored Skeptic, who she ended up dating for a while. She also wrote some articles for the Libertarian Republic, but they were never really like libertarian. She worked for them, but like didn't really work for them. She was like an independent contractor at most. And much like a lot of the anti-SJW crowd, well, I mean, not even necessarily a lot of them, but like the way that she was different than a lot of the other people is that she really didn't seem to care about like the actual politics of any of it. Like, I mean, as I stated, like, she worked for the Libertarian Republican for a little bit, but she herself has stated that she left because it was too political. And anytime that she was ever like given a chance to like explain her actual political views, she would basically click, oh yeah, I'm like a liberal, I guess. She never really seemed to actually care about the politics sense, and at least the other anti-SJW like YouTubers seem to come from like an actual like reason to care about why this is happening. You see, for Southern, it's because she was a Nazi. For Sargon, it was because he was a Nazi. Chris Reagan, because he was a gamer. TJ Kirk, because... okay, we'll have to come back to that one. But I think the actual reason that he stated that he cared was because of, like he saw, like, them doing, like, what a lot of religious people were doing, and that's why he started making fun of them. But essentially, she didn't really seem to have an actual reason to care, and was more just doing it to do it. Which is why, I mean, I'll be honest, I literally never knew that Shoe0nHead had her actual own career for a while. All I knew her of was Armored Skeptic's girlfriend. That's literally all I knew her as, because that was the only reason to pay attention to her. Not even really to pay attention to her, that's just what she was. Like Chris Reagan, he kept talking about like politics and stuff, so it's like he seemed to care. Armored Skeptic, he talked about like all the philosophical, not even philosophical, but like religious sense of it. He seemed to care. TJ Kirk seemed to care. But Shoe really just essentially was a troll. Not even a troll, like, well, I mean, I guess technically she was, like, we all kind of troll a little bit. But like I said, she really wasn't, like, political. Like, she was friends with literal neo-Nazis. And essentially, she was, like, on the feminist train because that was the train to be on. Like, being an anti-feminist or anti-SJW, that was just the thing to be. Like, and it shows. Like, even when the anti-SJWs were in the objective wrong, she would still be on their side. Like, remember the 2016 Ghostbusters thing? Do you remember how bad it got? Like, there were people who were harassing Leslie Jones, like, doing literal targeted harassment to her. Like, Milo Yiannopoulos was doing that, and then Shoe was defending it.
Yiannopoulos actually got permanently banned from Twitter.
The excuse they were using is that he was exacerbating an already out-of-control situation.
Yeah, you can't control your followers. And his tweets weren't hateful at all, really. They were just... oh, he did imply that she was a man, but...
she looks like a man.
She looks...
That's
she's
not
ugly.
racist.
She's just ugly.
She's
yeah, it's
ugly.
not racist. First of all, she looks like... and let me go on. I look like a pony gelfling who. That's not racist against white people. And I look like
a god. That's not racist to say.
Yeah, she was like 25, and then and you might say, oh, she didn't know, but I distinctly remember her giving an interview somewhere. I think it was on Vosh, or it was on like her Crystal Kyle and Friends segment. Wait, I don't even think I watched her Crystal and Kyle Friends segment, so maybe it was a Vosh thing, like, where she point blank stated that she knew that she's like, of course it was racist, but I said that it wasn't, because, like, and she gave like a tepid reason why, but that's really just what she is. That's what Shoe was. It was the hip thing to be, like, in the anti-SJW crowd, so she was in that crowd. She may have held, like, some core beliefs, but at the end of the day, she, like, it didn't matter, because she just went with the crowd. Now, of course, that leads into one other thing. You see, now, Shoe has kind of tried to make a quote-unquote change. You see, as she stated that her policies and her, like, positions haven't necessarily changed, but she has generally chosen to choose a new crowd to be with. Like, instead of being with the anti-SJW crowd, because that crowd does not exist anymore, she's now essentially hitched her wagon to the BreadTube crowd, ContraPoints, Vosh, and a couple of others. She's like done debates with them, she's talked with them, like, and one of the things that Vosh is trying to like claim credit for is like, oh, I'm trying to fix Shoe. I'm trying to pull her to my side. But it's like, I mean, maybe you are, but it's like, I don't know. And you see, this change happened basically due to COVID, because when COVID happened, Shoe essentially lost one of her biggest attachments, Armored Skeptic, because her and him, who were actually slated to get married, broke up. And I'm not saying, of course, like, he, like, permanently tied her and she can't make up her own decisions and she has to be led by a big, strong man, but it's like, he was essentially her only remaining tie to the anti-SJW crowd. So, when that tie was broken, she had to find a new crowd, and some of her rhetoric has definitely shifted. She's still, of course, in like an edgy, she's kind of like an edgelord, obviously, she's still that, but she has basically like tried to change things up. Like, she used to be openly hostile to BLM because that was what the anti-SJW crowd had to be. They had to hate BLM because SJWs. Now she says that she has a positive view on them. I don't think she's necessarily expanded on what her positive views on them are, but she now has a positive view on them. Another thing that she's done is basically jump on this whole like populism train. Like, oh yeah, I'm a populist, I love populism. One of the big things that she's known for now is apparently being a stand for Huey Long. Sorry, Shoe, Floyd V. Olson's better. I'm willing to fight you on that. I'm willing to do that anytime, any day. You know what? Actually, that would be an interesting first debate. Me v. Shoe. Why Olson is better than Long. She's also a huge Tull stan. Like, that crowd is obviously just well known. Like the vague populist crowd that has no clue anything about politics. Like, that crowd's well known. I knew people who were in that crowd and generally just still live in that crowd. But essentially, that's what Shoe's new brand is. Like, sort of like the populist girl, I guess. And she's trying to be and she's even trying to be like more radical in a sense. Like, I mean, again, I'm gonna have to say this, it's what the crowd is. The crowd says, like, the anti-SJW crowd, they have to hate BLM, so she hated BLM. This new crowd that she's in, like this new left crowd, they, like, supposedly, like, oh yeah, eat the rich, eat the rich. So, she likes eat the rich. She had a debate with Hunter Avalone where her and Hunter basically were like fighting over like the guillotine memes, and like Shoe essentially was like, yeah, but like, what's wrong with guillotining the rich? I mean, like what's the problem? Isn't that a good thing? But she wasn't saying that she would actually do it or anything of the sort. But she was like, oh, but I mean, just saying, wouldn't it be a good thing if that happened? And that's when it basically hit me. Like, I think it actually hit me during the making of this podcast that I essentially figured out, like, okay, now I get it. Shoe is a contrarian. Like, that is basically what the entire anti-SJW community can kind of be summed up as. Well, not all of them. Like, some of them, of course, just went full-on right-wing. But, like, Shoe, her politics is essentially contrarianism. Whatever is the perceived, like, cultural norm, she's the anti-that. Back during the anti-SJW years, it was perceived that like the culture was like this big Marxist, like left-wing progressive type thing. Like the feminists were controlling everything. They had all the power and they were like the dominant force, and the anti-SJWs have to go stop them. So she jumped on that crowd. Now the pendulum, when she started making the shift, the pendulum was that the right wing was the big ones, and the BreadTubes were the insurgents trying to take over the YouTube sphere. So now Shoe is in that sphere as well. And her brand has to be different. Like, her brand now, like, she has to form her own identity, and this is her identity. And you can tell, like, a lot of her positions technically have not changed. She still does argue, to a degree, some conservative things. One big thing that happened recently was, like, the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. For those who don't remember, Kyle Rittenhouse is, of course, on trial, and, I mean, she went on this is something that happened to me personally, so this is really weird and led to me having one big funny revelation. You see, Shoe posted something in response to, like, the people making fun of Kyle Rittenhouse because of how he was, like, crying and, like, the weird, like, essentially almost acting like tears that he did on, like, the trial bench. And he's like, and Shoe was responding with people on the timeline trying really hard to make Rittenhouse look cringe or whatever. I promise it's okay to just say you were wrong. I thought that was an incredibly stupid thing to say, so I responded with a very, very benign, like, quote tweet. I said, like, I made a joke. Here's the joke. I said, more like egg on face, am I right? You know, making fun of, like, her name being Shoe0nHead. So I said, oh, her name should be egg on face because, you know, she has an egg on her face for being wrong. I literally paid no mind and went about my day. And then, lo and behold, I went back to, like, check on Shoe's page just to see, like, did she post anything else? I need to see, like, what's up from, like, this video. Maybe she has something that, like, to talk about. Lo and behold, I was blocked by Shoe for posting that incredibly benign thing. Now, here's the thing. Shoe, of course, being in the anti-SJW crowd, one of the big things that they were running on and, like, doing, like, their rhetoric on was being free speech warriors. You know, like, we support free speech. People should be free to speak their mind, and we should be able to fight back. It's the free marketplace of ideas. She even was part of a scam on a website called Candid that was essentially trying to run on, like, literally doing that. It was supposed to be, like, a social media platform that was supposed to be, like, the free speech model. Essentially, like, the new... Well, not even the new, the old Panquaker, the old Gab. And yet now, here she is, silencing my free speech. Am I right, bros? Who's the SJW now? There's one more final story that involves Shoe0nHead and me, but that's, like, completely unrelated. So essentially, for those who don't know, I mean, obviously, a lot of you probably don't know, but as a content creator and, like, Twitter user, you gotta be in, like, a couple of, like, group chats and DM groups. There was one DM group that was very interesting. It was just, like, another one of the, like, oh, share our content and, like, you know, give each other feedback and stuff. And, like, try to, like, spread the message and, you know, work out ideas and whatever. But essentially, what happened one day was that we were talking about, like, just, I don't know, whatever. And it was, like, about, like, the Red Browns or, like, the, like, like, the populist crowd or, like, whatever. And, of course, Shoe0nHead's name came up. And having researched her, like, prior to, like, prepare for a potential episode, you know, I usually do the thing where I look them up a little bit prior and then, like, you know, wait until, like, I eventually get back into it to do it again. And I found out, like, an interesting story that happened because apparently, like, one day a bunch of her nudes got leaked on, like, whatever. And then, like, essentially, I just made, like, an offhand remark, like, oh, yeah, it was... Like, she's been through a lot. She's probably going through a lot of changes, you know. Like, I'll probably take her for her word. You know, she's been through a lot of stuff. Like, she recently broke up with her boyfriend. A bunch of her nudes got leaked. People were like, oh, yeah, it's terrible. That's genuinely terrible. I turned on my phone. I went out and did something. I don't know what I did. Then when I came back, I opened the DM group. And what should grace me other than Shoe's nudes? Posted by the guy who made the DM group. And it's like, everybody was like, whoa, what? Why did you do this? And everyone was saying, like, dude, what the heck? Like, why did you do this? This is wrong on, like, literally so many levels. Nobody asked for them. Even if anybody did ask for them, you shouldn't have given them. They're not yours to give. No, like, again, nobody asked for them. They're not yours to give. This isn't a group chat for that. Like, this is wrong on literally so many levels. He did some, like, fake-ass apology, like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just not necessarily, like, a prude or anything of the sort. And then, like, he was, for some reason, trying to debate on certain ones that were clearly not real. Like, he was trying to debate that certain deep fakes were real nudes. And it's like, of course that's not real. Are you idiot? And then he posted a screenshot of him, like, on the Google chat looking for the nudes. And was like, no, look, see, this one looks real. He's like, no, shut up. Nobody cares. Why are you doing this? We've told you no and stop. And then he got kicked out of the group. And then he, like, came back with a different account. And then, like, tried to be all nice to a bunch of people. And then, like, the second anybody called him out on, like, anything, he would, like, snap on them and just turn flat. Look, I remember, like, literally in a day, he DM'd me and said, like, oh yeah, man, you know, I love your content. You're such a very inspiring voice to our movement. You do so much wonderful things. And the next day, he literally went, like, honestly, your content is really boring. It's a drag. I don't see why you do this. It's like, oh boy, this is just pathetic. I don't know if he's still using this account, but the account that he used at the time was @BulkusAnthony. His name is Paul. I forget. The YouTube account that he, like, subscribed to me on, one of them is like a unicorn named Walker Small. So yeah, completely unrelated to Shoe. This is just something that interesting that happened, and it's like, that's just weird. And then he, like, keeps bringing it up sometimes. Like, I don't know why. Like, it'll be like, yo, why'd you share Shoe's nudes? And then he'll come out of nowhere and be like, no, you see, and he'll try to he'll do everything to justify doing them. Like, oh, I thought they were fake. No, but they're not fake. I explained, not the ones that you showed. You specifically picked one that, like, even if they were fake, who cares? If they're fake, it doesn't matter. And he says, oh no, Shoe actually posted them herself. No, nobody, no, not a single person said that. You're the person saying that because you have this, like, sick fantasy of, like, Shoe being some, like, slutty girl. That's your fantasy talking, not reality. He'll do anything to, like, try and justify what he did, when in fact, it's like, no, you can't justify what you did on any level. Again, essentially unrelated, but there's literally basically no other episode that I can talk about this. Well, I mean, I could have saved this for, like, a drama episode, but doesn't matter to me. Well, I'll talk about it until the cows come home. So anyways, final thoughts on Shoe? I mean, she's at worst a contrarian who really doesn't care about politics, that'll just jump on any trend ever. At best, she was a really misguided person who just didn't fully grasp the situation or the politics of the season. Either way, I'm not really a fan. I wouldn't necessarily fault you if you were, I guess, but I would advise you to find something better. Also, Shoe, unblock me. You won't, so we could debate Floyd B. Olson versus Huey Long. I'm down whenever. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, check out my articles on the Independent Political Report, or consider supporting me on Patreon.